WAFIC has always been there. They've always been the steadying voice, going right back to the original days of the old Australian Fishing Industry Council, but they obviously sit and think out a position and always come to the table with a well thought out position and some good ideas on how to promote the fishing industry. And without a doubt in my mind, WAFIC has been the most successful fishing industry council in Australia.
It's very important to have a focal point in the state of Western Australia for both the government and for the industry to focus on. One of the major things we did was set up the Rock Lobster Subcommittee within the organisation. Being involved in the Uniform Shipping Laws codes, we used to travel very wide in those early days, having board meetings throughout the state. And I also had a lot of experience with Fred Connell, the late Fred Connell. I used to fly with him all the time around the state going to different events. And the other side, on the federal side, it was always interesting to sit down with people from other states and hear their problems and get to know how they deal with them, and also to recognise that we in Western Australia were so much more advanced in a lot of things in fisheries management and things like that we did that they hadn't done. And consequently, with the MSC accreditation of the lobster industry was just the pinnacle of all that, because it really showed how far in front Western Australia was compared to the rest of the world, not just Australia.
WAFIC provided a strong focal point for the Marine Stewardship Council program in Western Australia, and it really demonstrates WAFIC's commitment to responsible, sustainable seafood. Key challenges for WAFIC for me revolve around communication and building community support to really highlight the value of the commercial fishing industry and the aquaculture sector in Western Australia.
I don't actually believe WAFIC's role has changed over the years. Its role is still to represent the industry as a whole and support the industry and preserve access. Certainly the most significant event that occurred at WAFIC during the time I worked there was the closure of the metropolitan area. There was a decision made that took all of the shark and wetline fishermen out of that region. It was a political decision that was made at the time. A lot of events where we got a much better result in terms of preserving access for a lot of small fisheries, such as helping Trevor Price in the Hardy Inlet and working with the recreational sector to preserve access for the Kimberley Barramundi fishermen. So we certainly did have some wins along the way.
Two significant events stand out to me during my time at WAFIC. One is in regard to securing the $14.5 million for the Marine Stewardship Council Certification Initiative for the state's fisheries. And the second one is in regard to the shift from input to output controls for the Western rock lobster fishery, being involved in the planning, extension and implementation of that change and seeing the benefits that have derived from that change.
I think the industry memories go way back to when I was probably 5 years old and I saw my father building boats. I would go to sea. I was at the Brylos Islands for every year until I went to school. Since I started in late 1971, I've seen the vast increase in behaviour and professionalism in the industry. People have really become serious about it, running it as a business, and especially the conservation of the fishery areas. I see going forward, it's going to be very important to retain or train new people, skippers, engineers and crew, and especially look at the support services around the fishing and boating industry. The other areas are ocean issues, and generally going forward that people have a really good understanding of how fishing really works.
Passion, I suppose. You know, we grew up in a fishing family and my father was looking at sardines being used for pet food and fertiliser, but he wanted to value add them, and that's how this has all become about. Well, as kids, the fishing industry was very heavy, hard work. Everything was manual and stuff. And to look at it today, you know, like we have GPS, we have automatic packing machines. It's so much easier now, so I suppose that's a fun memory. Well, being a brand new factory, we need a lot of information, so WAFIC were instant with information and they helped us in licensing, quotas around Australia and stuff like that, so they've been really fantastic.
I think activism will always be something that we have to have a constructive watch on to make certain that we're actually countering those claims that are unfounded by activists trying to undermine our industry. Resource access will always be our number one pillar, and we have to do everything in our power to make certain of that. We have to be a united and strong and cooperative voice.
The fishing community is an amazing body of people, and for me the fact that I can be part of that community has been incredibly special, and to be able to bring up my children in a state that has such fantastic credibility and an industry that has fantastic credibility. And it's incredibly important for Australians to be allowed to actually eat our sustainable, clean, green, disease-free seafood, especially in WA. And I think one of the biggest challenges for WAFIC is to continue to grow that knowledge within our general population.
Is that I think we should give respect to our forefathers, who are many of them not with us today, who had the foresight in 1968 to meet together in Canberra and set up what we called those days the Australian Fishing Industry Council, and WA was just a branch of that. And out of that came WAFIC. In later times we changed the name to WAFIC. But originally that was the Australian Fishing Industry Council, and I think we should give credit to those people who pulled that together. And we also should give credit to the many, many staff, CEOs, executive officers and staff that have been through this organisation over the 50 years, that have been very supportive of people like myself, and the boards that have been through the boardrooms of this place.